what's interesting about it is they're not demanding a retraction from what I see. They're not trying to send a legal team after Wired to potentially sue them for libel. And instead, they're just making content that doesn't necessarily even address the major points of contention here, but simply just moves on past it, directly attacks the journalists who reported on it, and then says, well, the Republicans are doing it too. Now, that last part is not incorrect. Republicans do exactly this, okay? That's why we call them grifters. I'm saying it. Is 100% a smear campaign on Taylor? Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say about it. Like, you can't get mad at a journalist doing their job. Like, their job is journalism. It's on Wired magazine. It's not like, this isn't like a blog post or like a YouTube expose or whatever. This is like, there's a rigorous editorial application. There's a standard that they abide by. Wired magazine especially has been pretty good in the Trump era. One of the only mainstream resources in the Trump era that has been actively holding the administration to task. So I think like parasocial fans of like liberal content creators feeling bad because the content creators themselves feel bad about like having their commentary or their infallibility or their like independence get called into question because of this article does not change the claims in the article. It does not change the journalism and the evidence presented in the article. And I think because a lot of people don't have media literacy, they just look to stuff like this and assume that, they have the same editorial standards as like a TikTok call out post. When you are writing a story for a serious publication, there are fact checkers that work behind the scenes. You get information on the record, you get information off the record, and you get information on background, okay? And on top of that, you have a trove of data that you sometimes won't even put in the article, but you show the actual fact checkers, you show the editorial team. There's an editorial process that is maintained. There are lawyers that look over these articles before they are released, because if you have a news outlet, that's just like slinging dirt, okay? If you have a news outlet that's just like shit smearing, slinging dirt, making up fabricated information, they will get into a lot of trouble. Now, obviously, editorial standards have been lowered when it comes to issues that pertain to like American foreign policy, even like these premier institutions. Someone said like Fox News. Yes, as a matter of fact. Yes, Fox News is a great example of this, because Fox News has an editorial side, like the Fox News commentary side, which is insane, and they make shit up all the time. But if you go to like the Fox News digital side, the newspaper side, if you noticed, you can compare Fox News reporting on things that I have said to slop tuber commentary people, and Fox News will pay extra attention to ensure that they are at least showing like the full context of the quote, because even Fox News's digital media side actually has a standard that they abide by. Maybe it's a little bit lower than like a New York Times or something, when they're not talking about Israel, of course. But even then, if you notice, like whenever I get written up on Fox News as opposed to like the New York Post, there is a far different standard that they abide by. And I always show it. And I tell you this. So, I mean, these guys have been sued because of their editorial content. They've been sued successfully by Dominion, if you remember. So that's usually what happens. If you don't have, if you don't abide by those editorial standards, like, you will get punished. You will get punished financially. It's like one of the only areas of litigation that still that still maintains some semblance of like credibility for the media landscape, for mainstream media in general. So this doesn't mean that there isn't like ever misinformation. Of course, a lot of these outlets, no matter what their ideological background is, can still have falsehoods and wrong information in their articles. But just trying to explain that to you, that you understand why I had to punish you earlier. What? Who the fuck is this? I will vote for Donald Trump. Are you okay? Wrong chat, maybe? It's a TikTok audio, I think. Okay. Anyway, so my point is, this isn't like a bullshit article. And there's a lot of back and forth happening, some of which is, I guess, marginally productive, but most of it is wholly unproductive. And much of it is stemming from, like, I think, content creators that have worked with the Democratic Party through like these, these donor groups that are funding them, feeling as though they've been outed for not being independent. And being independent voices in the way that they've presented themselves to their audiences. And I think that's like creating some animosity. And therefore, they're just kind of like attacking the messenger rather than the reporting itself. Because I haven't seen anything from people that address this, that calls into question. I haven't seen anything from people that address this that calls into question like the actual information featured in the article. Okay, so we'll start off here. This is Brian Tyler Cohen. So Brian Tyler Cohen owns Chorus, like, which is supposed to be this like not independent, but like Dem aligned influencer strategy, influencer marketing group. And at most, like, the argument that I've heard is, well, Republicans have been doing this, why can't we do it as well? Which is fine. I mean, it's not wrong. It's wild to watch Asman be on the side of the dark dem money and defending these guys is insane. Wait, what? I mean, he has no politics, man. He doesn't care. He has assumed the same exact world that many of my weirdo haters have assumed, which is, oh, is Hasan on board with this? Is Hasan on board with this? Then I'm against it. Like that kind of thing. If I came out and defended this, he would be blistering it. He would be sending daggers in that direction.
At the risk of giving an internet troll more attention, I want to address a piece that Taylor Lorenz wrote yesterday for Wired. An initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influencers up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. All they have to do is keep it secret and agree to restrictions on their content. Literally nothing.
I think that chatter was wrong. Asman actually agree with Taylor. Oh, thank God. At least he didn't go to that direction. Jesus Christ.
And this statement is true. The article is about Chorus, which is a nonprofit that I helped found to build up a creator ecosystem, which everybody says they want, but few are doing. So here's what Chorus is. It is a scholarship program.
No, Asman has surprisingly defended Taylor on this, to be honest. I mean, this is like, this is the most middle of the road article, okay? Okay, who was that chatter that said Asman Gold actually attacked Taylor Lorenz on this and defended who was it? Where the is that chatter? Let me see this. First of all, why are you sending the fabricated information? Chatter lied to start drama. Where is that chatter who lied to start drama? Okay, who is tarnishing the good name of Asman Gold? Where is it? All right, we got to take him out back. Me, watch him right now. Literally watch him right now. Right now, he's shitting on the article as we speak. Wait, what? Literally watch him right now? Wait, he's live right now? I'm so confused.
Video because the material harm that this is doing, this dumb dick conversation, but it is worth mentioning that this dark money that you are rallying so hard against also funds climate change orgs and voter rights organizations.
Oh, no. Shut it down. No.
Okay, I don't get it. He literally clearly says, I hate to say it, but I actually agree with Taylor Lorenz here. Not only is it potentially illegal, not disclosing a paid promotion, but that's why every sponsor says #ad, but it's also fundamentally disingenuous rap behavior, embarrassing, pathetic, dishonest. That TikTok is a drama farmer that's trying to get you to watch him, just an FYI. I like good trouble. I actually like Good Trouble. I like some of these people that, and I have no issue with a lot of these people that are like getting money from this group. Okay. I think you were wrong in your assessment, Chatter. Unless Asmongold is just going back and forth on his position.
I'm going independent. Well, doesn't say it anywhere. It doesn't say. But if she's going independent, if you're independent, how are you getting $8,000 a month?
Wait, what? She's not getting $8,000 a month. What is happening? What? How are
guys?
This is one of those situations where it feels like this is one of those situations where it feels like people that tune into this learn less.
I love how people that you write slop articles and you get mad that people make slop videos. What is this? What are you doing? Like, what are you thinking?
Okay. One of the things that's really frustrating about these sorts of conversations online is like someone writes an article, okay, for Wired magazine. Someone writes an article in general. And then instead of addressing the claims that are being made, most people just turn around and go, no, you. And I think a lot of people don't have the capacity to understand that, like, that's not an effective counter. Okay? You can't know you your way out of like a court case, for example. If there is an issue and your audience wants to understand like where this funding is coming from or why you didn't disclose this funding that was coming from, you can't just turn around and go, well, the person who wrote this article also gets funded by a different like grant structure, right? Like this is not an effective counter, okay? This should not be an effective counter. Unfortunately, it is a very effective counter, okay? First, what you need to do is actually address the main point of contention, okay? Good Trouble said she did this in his video and showed proof. No, what they're saying is that Taylor Lorenz is a part of the Pierre Omidyar like independent media fund or something, right? That's what it is, right? I mean, look, Pierre Omidyar, who also is responsible for The Intercept, is a very interesting. He's one of the few billionaires that's interested in at least like allowing some independent media and investigative reporting to take place. That's the reason why he funded The Intercept early on. I don't know if Taylor Lorenz, I think Taylor Lorenz confirmed that she actually had gotten, she's a part of that grant program. That grant program gives independent reporters and investigative reporters in general money from time to time. It's entirely different, however, from like a shadowy PAC. It's entirely different than like a Democratic Party aligned donation structure to Democrat content creators. Yeah, she is an Omidyar Network Fellowship currently, which is completely different and is public. Yeah. Yeah, I think they might have given money to Dropsite as well. They give money. It's a fellowship. It's like a scholarship. Okay? There's a difference between a scholarship program and a Democrat Party donor aligned shadow donation group funding liberal content creators with some fairly rigorous standards, right? Yeah. Brian is lying. I have zero financial ties to 1630 and neither does the Omidyar Network's LLC reporting program, which is not a dark money org. It is nonpartisan. Brian took dark money and failed to disclose his funding. I didn't take dark money and disclosed my funding. Yeah, I don't think that the fellowship structure is the same as what's going on here. Omidyar Network receives no funding for the reporters in the residence program via 1630 fund or any other outside sources. Our programmatic work is supported entirely via our foundation and LLC. More information about where we focus and how we invest is publicly available on the site. Brian Tyler Cohen's debunk was just 5 minutes of him speaking to a camera with zero documents or contracts shown. I don't know how everyone's taking this video of him refuting it. Yeah, so from what I saw, a lot of people basically just turned around and said the exact same things. Most of it was, this is not true, but even if it was, Republicans are doing it as well, so we have to do it as well. And also, it's just not true. They just kind of gave us money with no obligations whatsoever. And if we wanted to report on it, if we wanted to disclose that we were getting money from these guys, then we could openly openly disclose it. We just chose not to disclose it, right? So none of it actually tackles the main points of contention on the Wired article, or at least like the expose that came through from the Wired article. I mean, you could be pro-liberal, pro-Democratic Party, and you could have been totally on board with like the messaging, right? And that's part of the reason why you got money from this group. Like, that's fine. People do independently and organically believe these things as well. It's just like doesn't just exist in the ether. It's not, you don't always have to be paid to say these things. Not everyone is like a Richie Torres, right? Having said that, however, I think it's important for people to disclose their funding in general.
To teach creators how to grow their accounts, foster engagement, launch their own shows, and become profitable on their own. It's an incubator program to build the pro-democracy ecosystem. Influencers and creators have never been more important when it comes to how Americans are consuming their news. The right has been doing this for years, and the left needs to catch up. That's why we're doing this with Chorus. So let's talk about what Chorus is and what it's not. Chorus does not pay creators for content, does not tell them what to say, it does not...
Open Presence, thank you for the 25 gifted subs. The Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers. For you, the viewers. You're the only way for you to fund the Piker Broadcasting Service is PBS. Is by subscribing for $6 or for free. It's 30% off for September, which has started early.
Control who they talk to or work with, and there is absolutely nothing in the contract that could even be reasonably interpreted to say that we do. Period.
But I don't understand. If that's the case, where is Taylor Lorenz getting this information from? Right? Because look, the reality of the matter is, I have stood by Taylor's journalism and her reporting, and she's been consistent, right? You can't, either there is a massive up here, like, and either she like didn't see the correct contract or something, or someone fed her misinformation, like one of her on background or off the record resources just either deliberately spread misinformation, just lied to her completely. And then not only did that person lie to her, but that person lied to a team of fact checkers, the editorial team. And at no stage did the legal team at Wired magazine look at this and go, this doesn't seem correct, right? Well, what the was that? What is happening? I don't even know what just took place there. That was weird. I actually have no idea what's happening. That was weird. Those are peripheral disconnect noises? No, I know what those are. I just don't understand why that took place, and I don't know what got up in the process. Like, my audio is still fine. I can hear it. Anyway, so, but people who didn't take the offer confirmed it was the case. Maybe something got updated. I don't know. Could be the Elgato or something. All right. So as I was stating here, let's get back to the video, but she said she was approached by people who are under the contract and have concerns. Yeah, that was in the reporting as well. And there are some people who are in the article that did not actually... Okay, stop sending me this link. Okay, Jesus Christ. The report says that they looked at multiple contracts that had stipulations. Yeah, so did they just like make up a bunch of fake contracts and then feed it to Wired magazine? If that's the case, why would they have done so? Like, there are too many points of failure and too many lies on behalf of like, in order for me to arrive at this conclusion that like this reporting was untrue, there are a bunch of independent influencers that must have gotten together and like fed the same exact fake information to Taylor Lorenz, and it feels too incredulous. Okay?
Full stop. I don't know a single creator who would willfully sign up for a program that would tell them what they can or can't say. That's not what this program is. We pay people to show up to workshops and technical trainings to optimize their content online. For example,
but even this guy saying he got money is saying he just got money for fun, like his counterpoint to Taylor makes no sense. No, this is the person who owns Chorus, okay? So Chorus is an out and about like DNC affiliated influencer structure, right? So that's out in the open. That's not actually even a point of contention here. The reporting expanded on that, on who is backing Chorus, the 1630 fund, and who is actually funding the 1630 fund in general. Okay, and so when Brian talks about Chorus, that's his program. Like that's his actual thing. Like that's his personal nonprofit.
We've got trainings on how to package content for YouTube, trainings on how to optimize audience retention for Instagram and TikTok, trainings on how to form an LLC. Again, there are zero restrictions on their content. And by the way, the program works. In just 2 months, our cohort has added a combined 6 million followers, that's not including me, and seen their views and engagement grow. That is the point of the program, to teach creators how to be effective with whatever messages they want to promote. And with regard to keeping it a secret, there is a standard confidentiality clause in the contract to protect the privacy of the creators. On the literal first day of the program, it was made clear to all of the creators in our kickoff session that they were absolutely free to talk about Chorus. And we immediately followed up to confirm that in writing. Creators have videos about Chorus. They've got donation links to Chorus in their bios. I myself have made videos that were posted all over the internet about Chorus that reached hundreds of thousands of people. It is not a secret, and it never was.
Yeah, I don't think that's the secretive part. I don't even think Taylor was saying that that's a secret. Wait, this doesn't make any sense. Unless, I don't think Brian is misunderstanding the reporting, right? Like, because the reporting does not make it seem as though Chorus is this secretive element here. Chorus has a website. And on that website, there are content creators, many of which actually work with Chorus, and some that do not actually work with Chorus that are even used in the pitch decks, for example. In the Wired article, if you guys remember, like Kat Abu-Ghazalek, who is now running for Congress, who used to work as an influencer and also used to work at Media Matters, was demanding that she no longer be presented in the pitch decks, for example. So they were like, so that kind of stuff is... This comes across like a little bit of a straw man. Like I think they should just be like, yeah, we're getting money from Democrats, and we're getting money from Democrat donors, and this is a normal part of the process on the Republican side, and we're trying to build a robust liberal media ecosystem. And I think the major issue here was that we did not disclose who we were getting paid from, and whether or not some of the content that we were putting out there was an actual ad or was a demand being made by either Chorus or Chorus as a middleman for 1630, which is the actual backer, right? Lying, read the article. She says creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and essentially cut off financially if they even as so much acknowledged that they were a part of the program. That is absolutely in the article Taylor wrote. She clearly said the fellows were told not to say they're affiliated. No, I know. I know. I know that they said that. I'm saying he's saying that that's not the case. So now it's his word against the people that, like Taylor's sources that told her that this was in the article. I know. Why are you saying lying? Read the article. I did read the article. I know what it says. Why are you saying I'm lying? Also, I'm being charitable to Brian as well. Like, these are not people that I have, these are people that I don't agree with on some issues, right? Specifically when it comes to silence on Gaza until it was like no longer the responsibility of the Democratic Party. Like, I think that's a major flaw for every independent content creator. I wish they were actively issue first. You literally said that Taylor never insinuated that people weren't allowed to talk about Chorus. No. Taylor herself has written about Chorus. Chorus is a public group. Taylor in the article also even says that there are creators that are affiliated with Chorus on the website. There are some creators who aren't even affiliated with Chorus that are also featured on the website. Okay? But the contract stipulation is still real. You can be affiliated with Chorus on the website and then be told through the contract to never actually say when you are doing an ad or being funded by Chorus. There's a difference between, hey, this is a group, this is an influencer network that I'm affiliated with, versus this is an influencer network that I'm affiliated with that's paying me so that I say certain things. Do you understand? I think there's a fairly big difference between someone saying, I'm affiliated with this group versus I'm doing an ad for this group. I'll give you an example. There are numerous organizations, right? And this is literally illegal, and you will get in trouble for doing this. If you're a content creator that's a part of 100 Thieves and you say, I'm affiliated with 100 Thieves, you don't have to actually disclose what level of affiliation you have with 100 Thieves. But if 100 Thieves was like telling you, for example, to do an ad that they have sold inventory for off of your stream on, and you didn't disclose that that was an ad that you were doing for 100 Thieves, or that was an ad at all that you were doing, that would be illegal. The difference, of course, is that when it comes to political advocacy, unfortunately, the boundaries are a little bit different, which is really f***ed up. This is something that I take issue with in general, right? God, you are such a dumbass. You said, I don't even think Taylor said that it was a secret in reference to who's affiliated. No, you're misunderstanding my point. Okay? You're misunderstanding my point. Yo, Bad Empanada just called you out again. I don't care. Oh my God. No disrespect. You just said that BTC was arguing against Chorus being a secretive group, which was a statement that Taylor made word for word in the article. Am I misunderstanding something? Because I remember reading the article. I can read it again if you guys want. And I can also literally go through, once again, the things that Taylor Lorenz said in the aftermath of the article as well, where she openly stated that she's reported on Chorus already. This article is not necessarily just about Chorus, but Chorus being a simple middleman for a shadow donor group. And I think you guys are either just like rehashing and repeating the talking points that you heard without actually reading the article yourselves. Also, you guys aren't political content creators that are getting paid by Chorus or any other shadowy group. You're watchers, you're political understanders, you're political enjoyers, and you have your favorite political content creators, right? And as a consumer of political commentary, okay, I would assume you would want your political content creators to openly tell you when they are being funded by a group, right? Or openly disclose if something that they're saying is financially tied back to either Chorus or also tied back to like a DNC donor. I don't understand why you would literally advocate. I don't understand how you could engage in advocacy as a person who is getting information from a independent political commentator who is actively arguing for less transparency. This doesn't make any sense to me at all, and it makes me feel like you are not actually invested in the truth. Who are you arguing against? Is anybody saying that? I mean, you are. You are doing that. You're saying that this article is bullshit and that you're misunderstanding the purpose of the article itself, and you are also seemingly you literally said I'm lying. What is your point of contention here? I pointed out that you misunderstood the article. So Chorus is funding left-wing creators and is public about it, but Chorus isn't public about who's funding them. Is that right? Yes, that's part of the problem. But the other part of the problem is, according to the contract stipulates that, and we don't know, right? I haven't seen the contracts, but my expectation is not to see the contracts when I'm reading a news article about something like this. In most circumstances, the news article doesn't actually reveal the contracts, but they will show the contracts to the editorial team and to the fact checkers as well, and to the legal team as well, to make sure that the article that they're writing is fully, it's fully correct, and they don't get hit with like a countersuit or something like a libel suit. Anyway, this is the scoop. Powerful dark money group is secretly funding high-profile Democrat Party influencers. Big liberal content creators are being paid up to $8,000 a month to push party messaging. Democrats hope that the secretive course creator incubator program funded by a powerful liberal dark money group called the 1630 Fund might tip the scales in their favor after Kamala Harris's stunning loss to Trump last fall. The program kicked off last month, and over 90 influencers are allegedly taking part. Creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and cut off financially if they even so much as acknowledged that they were a part of the program. The contract itself says you are not allowed to say it, but the website, the Chorus website, as far as I understand, has like a bunch of content creators that are unaffiliated and also affiliated on it saying, this is our network, this is our pitch deck, these are the people that we're working with. Ultimately, if those contracts are falsified and they're shown to be, the contract stipulations are shown to be entirely different than the way Taylor reported on it, then that's on her. But when I read an article from like Wired magazine from a reporter like Taylor Lorenz, my initial expectation is not going to be, oh, this is slop or this is false. This is a falsehood. You can't just like lie in a piece of news coverage like this. That chatter you are arguing with is bad faith from my logs, from check logs. And the founder of the company unambiguously stated that there are no content restrictions. Okay, but the contracts that they reviewed show otherwise. So it turns into a he said, she said. And considering that the owner of the company, the founder of the company, who, again, I'm going to repeat this one more time. I have disagreements with Brian Tyler. I have disagreements with Brian Tyler Cohen. So the honest thing to do is reserve judgment, not to defend your stands, my stands. Any journalist could have written this article and my assessment would be the exact same. My stands, Taylor Lorenz is not my stand. She's an adult, okay? Again, I don't want to be uncharitable to you, chatter, but it kind of feels like you're coming at this from an incredibly parasocial lens. It seems like you're actually arguing at the behest of some other parasocial ambition that you have to make it seem like this person is actually a bad journalist because they're a stan of mine or something. And it's not only objectively incorrect, but it feels like you're a little drama brain. I want to be as charitable as possible to you. Totally. You caught me. I mean, yeah, we're talking about the Democrat Party donors potentially trying to give independent liberal content creators contracts that are fairly rigid, that demand that they don't disclose their affiliations or their funding, and might even have some level of editorial control. And your argument is, my stan wrote this article and I shouldn't be defending it. I think you should stop being so childish. Seriously. Chatter is saying, trust these people faced with allegations, but not the reviewed contract by the publication. If you have a problem believing the publication, chatter, demand that they release a contract. Yeah, the other side of the story is that like you're kind of doing the same thing that like Republicans do. You're just saying like it's fake news. It's fake news because it makes me reconsider whether or not my favorite content creator is like being independent or not. I still think we should be charitable to Brian Tyler Cohen because the points he made in this video were transparent and direct and not in bad faith. I know, but he's not actually, he's just saying it's not true. Do you understand? Like, he's not presenting evidence. It's just his word against the journalism of the article. So, and I'm going to repeat this one more time. I don't have any issue with Brian Tyler Cohen. I have disagreements with Brian Tyler Cohen, but like, it's cordial, okay? Look at logs from 2014-08. What is this? Meowlix? 2024-08. She's not looking for Trumpers. She's looking for never Trumpers who might otherwise stay home. Oh my God. Why are these chatters like this, bro? This was the chatter unironically defending Kamala Harris's Liz Cheney coalition. Liberals have this like weird, Greta would be a better activist if she was streaming 8 hours a day. Liberals, why are liberals like this? Why are liberals so cynical? Why are they only just like angry at the left? It blows my mind. And they're just wrong. And it doesn't matter. Like I want the Republicans to lose. I want them to feel embarrassed. It's clear that you don't have that same smoke for the Republicans, or rather, you're simply misguided. But at a certain point, you have to realize, like, maybe this method hasn't been working. Let's try the other one. Okay? It doesn't make any sense that you would just sit there and demonstrate blind fealty, blind loyalty to a party that is failing, to a party that's failing you and me and everyone else. Why are you so charitable to these lifeless husks that have shown time and time again that they do not care about you? They just only care about, like, sitting in a position of power and collecting donations. This makes no sense. It actually makes no sense why these people do it. And then they come here and they yell at me about this. It makes me so sad because, like, I understand that we need the numbers, okay? We need the numbers. We need the numbers. We need as many people as possible who are like-minded to combat whatever the Trump administration is doing. And it always feels like the harm reduction liberals, like, instead of admitting that they might have been wrong, would rather continue waging this war against their left flank. When their left flank is out in the streets, you know what I mean? It makes no sense. Their left flank is out in the streets. They're demanding that the Democrats do more. You want the Democrats to do more as well, but you would rather fight against the left flank than to fight against the Trump administration. It makes sense for the liberals in positions of power to do this and to divide the base of the party, because the left flank actually, you know, presents a alternative and demands more from them. So it's understandable that they treat, like, the leftist base of support as the petulant children that want far too much, right? But it doesn't make sense for the regular people in my chat to be so active in also defending the failures of the Democratic Party. It just makes me sad. It does. It makes me real sad. Anyway, according to copies of the contract viewed by Wired that creators signed, the influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Coors or 1630 Fund or functionally that they're being paid at all. So that is the main point of contention here. Is that contract real or not? I have no reason to assume that this contract is not real. I have no reason to assume that a mainstream outlet like Wired Magazine, especially one that's done great work so far against the Trump administration, is going to sit there and put forward an article. I mean, a contract that's just, like, fake. Okay. Legal Heretic tip $500 said, here's some dark money so you don't feel left out. Thanks for the dark money, Legal Heretic. Legal_heretic. I no longer feel left out.
There's the implication in the article that this is some arm of the DNC, or the Democratic Party. We have literally nothing to do with the DNC. I spend 0 minutes of my day thinking about the DNC. The creators do not toe any party line. How could we? There isn't a party line. Creators are absolutely allowed to speak out against the Democrats, and in fact, plenty do. And frankly, course creators should and do criticize Democrats when they suck, and quite often, they do suck. I've seen posts saying that this is AIPAC funded, which couldn't be further from the truth. I'd venture to...
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. That's not an argument that was presented by Taylor at all either. I don't think, right? Simple take from just a person this content is aimed at. I want to see the Democratic Party be more responsive to the will of their base. What I see here is the Democratic Party using independent creators to tell me, no, your opinion is wrong. Here's the correct one. I'm not interested in being told what I should believe. This time they can come to us, not the other way around. Yes, what you're advocating for is the fundamentals of democracy, a representative democracy that creates individuals that are supposed to be public servants that represent the wishes of the masses, represent the wishes of their base at the very least. That's the whole point, right? That's the whole point of democracy. Otherwise, we just don't have a democracy at all. We just have, like, team sports. And unfortunately, under our duopoly structure, it kind of does become team sports, where there are a lot of agreements on broader issues between the two parties within this duopoly structure, where there's bipartisan compromise on issues that we don't even think about, issues that Americans think about every day, the impact of issues that Americans think about every day, like healthcare and not having socialized medicine in this country that harms millions, tens of millions of Americans. And yet it's a given that it's going to be a private public structure, not even a public structure, but like an entirely privatized endeavor, and that the Democrats themselves barely ever make a dent in that conversation. There's no back and forth on this issue. And when there is any sort of momentum from the left flank that demands we get Medicare for all, Democrats do what? They launch an unjustifiable battle against those who are actually presenting this alternative that many people actually would benefit from, regardless of whether they think it's good or not. This is the issue. I don't like that a lot of the initiatives from the Dems have been to basically flood the market to the best of their ability with, no, you don't understand, harm reduction. Democrats are better than Republicans, which is not even false. Okay, that is true. Democrats are marginally better than Republicans on a lot of issues, and even majorly better than Republicans on a lot of issues. They just follow the Republicans, at least in the way that I've tracked it for the past, 10 years, 12 years at this point, over the course of multiple election cycles, midterms and general elections, where Democrats basically follow the Republicans' lead on a lot of these issues, and they play the role of normalizing the Overton window shifting further and further to the right as they take on and assume the positions of the Republican Party just 4 years after the fact. This obviously creates a lot of enmity. This creates a lot of anger and resentment in the base of support within the Democrat structure, which is precisely the reason why Democrats have lost support even at a time where they're supposed to be gaining momentum, gaining support, because the Republicans suck. They're in power. Everything sucks. Everything is awful. The world is burning all around us. And yet people still say this is ass. Democrats are not presenting an alternative. They're not fighting back. They're not fighting back hard enough. That stems from the lack of interest demonstrated from the establishment in making changes within the party structure, making changes within their top line messaging on key issues. Okay? If you cannot be defined by major problems that persist in American society, and if you can't actively communicate that you are an earnest defender of people's rights, earnest defender of workers' rights, an earnest defender that is going to fight to fix the housing market, that you are going to fix the private healthcare structure that is so broken and so costly and so expensive and in killing people, then of course people are going to assume you are in favor of whatever the Republicans present you as. Oh, they're unserious. They only want to give bottom surgery to Guatemalan migrants in prison. That was a major issue. That was a major issue in this last election. It's not the transphobia that was so captivating for people. It was the lack of interest from the Dems in addressing any of these issues seriously and sincerely that the Republicans took advantage of.
Guess that most course creators, myself included on both YouTube and Substack, have spoken out against the atrocities in Gaza. Lorenz says that the 1630 Fund is, quote, a powerful liberal dark money group. 1630 Fund is our fiscal sponsor. One of the largest documented donors to 1630 Fund is the same person funding MESSIER's Reporters in Residence program, which Taylor Lorenz herself is a part of. And guess what her monthly stipend is? $8,000 per month. So she's criticizing an entity that is funded by someone that she is currently taking money from. I guess it's okay when Taylor Lorenz gets paid, but no one else. The monthly stipend that we offer is so that creators can do this work full time. We've had numerous creators.
So, I don't know exactly how much money she gets from the Omidyar fund. Okay. And I don't know if Pierre Omidyar is a part of the donation structure for the 1630 fund, but the major difference here is the disclosures. Okay. If it's publicly disclosed, if a grant is a public grant and it's publicly disclosed, it's entirely different than having a bunch of shadowy donors that fund an organization with contractual stipulations that demand that you do not disclose that you are being funded by this organization. Okay? What's the point of Brian Taylor Cohen lying about Taylor here? It's not even, I guess technically it's not even a lie. I guess like the only thing that he's wrong about or lying about, or he might be misguided about is the funding, but like you're attacking the messenger instead of the message. It's just it's a trick that a lot of people do. It's a very successful deflection mechanism to say, oh, well, no, you're also getting funded by this guy that we're also getting funded by. But in fact, from what I understand, seemingly Jessica Burbank is the one who started. I really like Jessica Burbank. I don't understand what the going on here, but is the one who started the complete lie that I'm somehow funded by 1630 Fund, or that Omidyar Network is reporting is Omidyar Network has received zero funding from 1630. I have received zero funding from 1630. This is a disgusting thing to do to another reporter. Page 82 of financial disclosure in 2022. I just DM'd it to King Clip because I saw him retweeting Taylor. This screenshot is from a refund 1630 sent from a program that Omidyar funded years ago before the Reporters in the Residence program even began. The fact that Jessica Burbank is spreading complete fabrications about me in coordinated group chat of influencers revealing. Jessica's talking about how she's leveraging her connections in media to spread this stuff too. What other journalists has she been boosting this smear campaign to? My story with Wired is factual. Participating in a coordinated smear campaign is so low. Here's the statement from Omidyar Network on the Reporters Residence program. Neither I nor they have ever received funding from the 1630 fund. I have never received a dollar from any dark money groups or political organizations. ChatGPT link at the, wait, what? Sourcechatgpt.com. Does this mean that like ChatGPT spat this out? I don't understand. If Taylor was funded meaningfully by the same entity, wouldn't she simply just not have an interest in writing the article? Yeah, that also kind of doesn't make sense. You being charitable to Brian Tyler Cohen is going to look so bad in a very short period of time. Play the rest of the video. He does not deserve the charitability. Okay, we're doing the same thing over and over again, which is, Hasan, you are being far too charitable to people. I'm always charitable to people, okay? That's it. If you hate it, then this is not for you. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of like publicly malicious behavior for me to write someone off. That's just how I am. That's just how I've always operated, and I will continue to operate that way. That's been your downfall several times, I know, and yet I still refuse to stray away from this. Okay, he's gonna come for Hasanabi in the video, isn't he? I don't care. I'm nice to people who are actively daggering me too. Look at Bad Empanada. Like, I don't. It's fine, you know.
Creators in the cohort quit their jobs so that they can focus on creating content full time. That is what we want. I'm really proud that we can give creators that security for as long as they're in the program. We want people to create pro-democracy content full time, and we want to make sure that they can afford to pay their rent and their bills while doing it. If I could have cohorts with 1,000 people in it so that everybody could be part of the program, I would. For everybody saying that they would like to be part of the next cohort, we would love for you to apply. That's our whole goal. It's to build up an army of pro-democracy content creators who can speak authentically about the issues that they care about and be able to do it as effectively as possible. I should note that while I started this program, I have never and will never get paid. I do.
Okay. I think the major problem here is like, why do the contracts stipulate that there are no disclosures whatsoever, and what level of editorial control are baked into the contracts? Because now it's just the contracts that Taylor and the Wired team has reviewed versus, which is hard evidence, right? Hard evidence that is backed by the editorial control process that exists in mainstream outlets such as Wired, and the legal teams and the legal reviews that take place in the process, and the fact checking that takes place in the process of like putting out an article such as this one. It's not the same as like a Substack report, okay? But ultimately, it's just what he's saying is this is false versus the Wired reporting.
This 100%.
Like this isn't Brian Tyler Cohen against Taylor Lorenz. This is Brian Tyler Cohen saying Wired is putting out fake news. Okay. When I first started watching you, I got mad at how tolerant of guys like Aiden you were, but over time, I see like for real, you give people a chance. If they prove they are not worth it, you move on. Very sensible, just trying to show support. You handle yourself very well, in my opinion, even though I used to not agree. I realize your method is correct. I will continue doing it because that's just who I am. That's what I believe, okay? That's why I haven't strayed away from that charitability until someone shows me that it's like impossible. But yeah, look, he is angling this as like Taylor Lorenz being an internet troll, and I think it's because he doesn't want to come across as like shitting on Wired magazine, which does great reporting. So he's just directly tackling the messenger by smearing the messenger rather than address the message. It's a common tactic applied, a common tactic that's used that is unfortunately very effective. Donald Trump does it. A lot of people do this. I think the best possible way to go about this would have been to just be like, hey, we f***ed up. We shouldn't have What is this? What is the Chorus policy agenda exactly? One of your 75, 90 salaried influencers posted a screenshot of the contract trying to debunk something. Book engagements. Chorus will provide contracts with access to Chorus newsroom, which coordinates booking and engagement opportunities for creators with government officials, policy, nonprofit experts, and others whose expertise and experiences are relevant to Chorus's progressive policy agenda. Contractor agrees to 1, utilize the Chorus newsroom to book engagements. 2, disclose the Chorus newsroom personnel, any engagements with government officials or others on topics related to Chorus's policy agenda that contractor arranges through other means. If there's a policy agenda from this org and it's significant enough that your salaried influencers have to disclose their engagements relevant to it and agree to coordinate booking and engagement opportunities around it, then surely it can be defined, and by whom. Wait, so this person is a Chorus influencer that was trying to debunk the narrative in the contract and then leaked the contract? Is that what happened? The other side of this is like, if this reporting is factually inaccurate, there is a process through litigation that you would normally go through, right? So what's interesting about it is that they're not doing that. They're not like actually saying, they're not demanding a retraction from what I see from Wired. They're not trying to send a legal team after Wired to demand a retraction or to potentially sue them for libel. And instead, they're just making content that doesn't necessarily even address the major points of contention here, but simply just moves on past it, directly attacks the journalists who reported on it, and then says, well, the Republicans are doing it too. Now, that last part is not incorrect. Republicans do exactly this, okay? That's why we call them grifters. That's why we call them grifters.
As a volunteer, I have never earned a dime from Chorus, and I never will. I want every dollar that we raise to go to creators so that they can do this important work without spending 8 hours a day working at some different job. I've been saying for years that the left needs to build up its creator space. That has never been more true than it is right now. Influencers and creators have never been more important when it comes to how Americans are consuming their news. The left is a decade behind right now. We desperately need
This part is correct. He's right about this, right? But having said that, if you were to say it's really important that we also build a robust and transparent progressive media network, okay, to actively counter the misinformation that flows from the right, then that's fine. You say, hey, we f***ed up. We shouldn't have had these contracts that are so ridiculous, and we should have disclosed donors, and we should have always been transparent, even if the law allows us to not be transparent. Okay? That's important. Like, I think that's the best possible way to go about this. And the worst possible way to go about it is that to do like almost Trump style, like this person sucks and is bad. Because like the thing that they're pointing to is the Omidyar disclosure filing from 2022 before Omidyar Network reporters and residency fellowship even existed. It's for $45K. Omidyar Network is a billionaire's own philanthropy org, and none of the residents failed to disclose that they're on the Omidyar Network fellowship program. But it's very telling that the reaction from this journalism about a cohort of influencers devolved into defensive lies and glorified botnet of influencers throwing misinformation against the wall to smear the reporter. Like, it's just making me, I feel a little bad about a lot of people that I actually do appreciate, whose voices I appreciate in this space, like Good Trouble especially. Like, he's not in any way, shape, or form quiet on Gaza at all, right? He's not one of these guys he's actively spoken about Israel's genocide, Israel's apartheid. So like for him to also join on the chorus, and Jessica Burbank as well, I think is great. So it's somewhat disappointing to see them immediately go after. It's somewhat disappointing to see them immediately go after like not even the actual article and the revelations in the article, but instead just like directly attacking the person who did the reporting.
Creators teaching and amplifying new content creators, and not just Chorus, by the way. There are other programs in this space doing the same thing. I want all of them to succeed. We need all of them to succeed. There are people like Taylor Lorenz who are desperate to tear the left apart, and in fact, it becomes clear who her efforts help when you hear stuff like this.
Genuinely, I kind of like Taylor Lorenz because I know that she actually believes what she says.
Totally
Do you get what I'm saying?
So yeah, I generally don't align myself with friends of Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens.
I don't think Taylor Lorenz is friends with Tucker Carlson and Taylor. What? No, that's not. I think the reason a lot of people don't understand this, but like, even if you have disagreements, I said this yesterday, even if you have disagreements with the way like Taylor conducts herself or, you know, some of the things that she believes or some of the things that she advocates for, ultimately her work speaks for itself. Okay. And she is the type of journalist that unfortunately no longer exists as much, where like people will be like, oh, she'll burn you for a story. And it's like, that's not wrong, but that's what journalists do. Like, journalists do that. That's what the job of a journalist is. That's what the job of an investigative reporter is. Okay. Like, this is how you, in many instances, a tenacious and maybe a little, maybe a little crazy is like something that is necessary with good reporters, good investigative reporters. Like, that's it. And I don't like I don't know. I mean, I guess I understand why people are directly attacking her, because I mean, she's been attacked endlessly from virtually every single different ideological background on the internet. And therefore there is a lot of things that you can pull from, smears or even like valid critiques or whatnot, but it's not about her reporting. And as a reporter, as a journalist, when you are criticizing someone's reporting, you have to criticize their reporting. You can't just like criticize who they are or what they've done or what other people think about this person. Okay? Even if you have disagreements with them. Sean the Black, the leaked contract corroborated the Wired reporting on certain things, so Brown is just lying / misrepresenting. Yeah. After ignoring my repeated requests for comment prior to publication, Chorus finally responded today. We have incorporated their comment into the piece, but have not issued any corrections on our reporting. The facts of the story remain unchanged. I'm going to look at this video as well. This is 10 minutes long. Jesus Christ. It's just, I do think, can you back up and explain what's even being talked about? Yes. Originally, Taylor Lorenz writes a investigative report on the Wired magazine about a powerful dark money group that's secretly funding high-profile Democratic Party aligned influencers. Big liberal content creators are being paid up to $8,000 per month to push party messaging. Okay? Democrats hope that the secretive Chorus Creator Incubator program, funded by a powerful liberal dark money group called 1630 Fund, might tip the scales in their favor after Kamala Harris's stunning loss to Trump last fall. The program kicked off last month, and over 90 influencers are allegedly taking part. Creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and cut off financially if they even so much as acknowledged that they were part of the program. According to copies of the contract viewed by Wired, so they did actually get these contracts, and they did view these contracts that creators signed. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with the Chorus or the 1630 Fund, or functionally that they're being paid at all. Creators in the program are not allowed to use any funds or resources that they receive as a part of the program to make any content that supports or opposes a political candidate or campaign without express permission from their funders. With this structure, it avoids a lot of public disclosure or public disclaimers, paid for by blah, blah, blah, that you see on political ads. We don't need to deal with any of that. Your names aren't showing up on like reports filed with the FEC. So there's two different things here, okay? Normally, if you are paid for by a political activist, political advocacy fund, right? If you're paid for by like a political action a fund, right? Or any sort of campaign, you actually, a lot of people don't know this, you don't actually have to disclose that that's an ad. And the reason for why, I think it's really indecent that this exists to begin with. But the reason for why you don't have to is because technically it's all public. It's all public on the regulatory side, because if you go and like look at the Progressive Victory Fund, for example, you can find exactly who they have given money to for what purpose, right? We did that when I was covering the Wired magazine article as well. So because of that, because technically there is a legal disclosure that needs to take place on that end, you are not required to say this is a hashtag ad. It's a major loophole, and I don't like it, and I think it's up, okay? Having said that, in this circumstance, there's an additional issue, because hold on, there's even more contractual stipulations. Like, they're taking advantage of the fact that this is they're taking advantage of the fact that this is a political advocacy organization, but it doesn't even have the FEC disclosures. It doesn't even have the FEC disclosures that normally would show up. Okay. The FEC and FTC declined to comment, but regulations in the influencer space are notoriously murky, and the intentional non-disclosures raise ethical questions about political advertising in the internet age. Don Heider, the chief executive of Marcola Center for Applied Ethics, says that the outlined restrictions violate ethical norms. We're living in an era where a lot of powerful people have taken the rule book and thrown it out the window, which is true. There's also the other side of the story, which is that the regulatory agencies that normally would look at this sort of thing, the FEC or the FTC, if it's a non-political ad, then it's the FTC technically. It's under the supervision of the FTC. If it's a political ad, it's under the supervision of the FEC. But both of these regulatory agencies have been completely gutted and undermined by the Trump administration. So who the is supposed to even take notice of these sorts of things? Okay, so it's the fact that it's not illegal or in a legal gray area doesn't mean that it's good or appropriate. Do you understand? Or the fact that Republicans are doing this and taking advantage of the structure, which is part of the reason why it's already not illegal to begin with, does not make it good or appropriate, right? Liz Dubois, who has researched the ways influencers are reshaping the U.S. political system, says that we are seeing influencers being pulled into these dark campaigns or shadow campaigns where the legal aspect is murky at best. Sometimes it is actually clear that influencers are being used to, for example, evade spending limits. I think that we need to remember that for democracy to thrive, we do need transparency around who's paying for political messages. Okay? Stephen Buckley, a digital media sociologist, says that these sorts of programs have been happening in the right wing for ages, but the structure of the deal raises the question: is it ethical to match the tactics of your opponents? What we need is for people to invest in independent media, and that doesn't necessarily mean investing in a consulting group that is going to become a middleman for independent media, says Spahar. So that was the article, and then in the aftermath of this article, people just basically decided to attack Taylor Lorenz. Taylor has good politics, but objectively a really bad journalist. Okay, you have to explain why you mean this, why you feel this way. Because I would go so far as to say that most people's criticisms are about her worldview or the way she presents herself online, but will openly admit that she is a good journalist, including what Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson were literally saying over there, which is like, she's not a grifter. She like truly believes the shit that she's saying, and her work speaks for itself. So I don't know why you have this opinion, and I need you to explain to me why you think that she's doing objectively really bad reporting. Because if you remember, she didn't actually leave the Washington Post because, like, she worked at the New York Times and she worked at the Washington Post, okay, as one of their best culture reporters, okay? And I know that like personal relationships and things like that obviously guide a lot of people's opinions on these journalists in general. It's networking just like every other avenue, every other business. But what is it that you don't like about her reporting is the question. Because there is not really anything that I have seen from her reporting that leads me to believe that she is a bad reporter. She is not. She's a very good reporter, as a matter of fact. It's part of the reason why a lot of people actually hate her. I mean, that, and also she dukes it out quite a bit online on Twitter. But again, that's irrelevant to the point of contention. Okay? Her tweets about the DSA is utterly irrelevant to the point of contention when it comes to her reporting here. Do you understand what I mean? Like, that's it. That's it. You can't just like bring that up and be like, she's a bad reporter because she said this about the DSA. It's like, okay, well, that's completely irrelevant to whether or not she actually put forth a credible, trove of evidence-backed piece of news. You can't. Like, later, we're going to look at Matthew Petty, writing for Reason. Reason is a libertarian think tank. Matthew Petty exposed a trove of emails between Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, and Jeffrey Epstein, in which they talk about surveillance programs that they should be funding, in which they talk about geopolitical incidents that are taking place all around the world and how they can make money off of it by using surveillance groups, specifically Peter Thiel's Palantir at the time. Does it matter what publication reported on it if the article and the information in it is correct? So yeah, that chatter hasn't even described what their issue is, what issue they have with any kind of reporting. Because the reason why Taylor is no longer at the Washington Post is low key, not even because of the reporting that she did, but instead due to a lot of media reporters that just like don't really like her and things that she may or may not have said in her private account on Joe Biden being a war criminal, which is correct, by the way. So no, I didn't say Matthew Perry. I said Matthew Petty.
I continue to believe that the left needs massive investments into the independent media space. I'm really proud of the program that we've built. I'm really proud that we've allowed creators to do this work full time. I'm really proud of the independence that they have to say whatever they want to say in whatever way they want to say it. I'm really proud that our creators are seeing their channels and their pages grow. My goal is to see an army emerge from the left to take on what's happening on the right.
Okay, so then the rest of it is just like
Lorenz and Republicans don't want to see it, but we do.
Taylor Lorenz and Republicans don't want to see it. That's not even true. Okay, it's sad to see online leftists jump on this hate train, having no idea who she actually is or where she advocates for outside of she's a Twitter drama target. I know, but it's also because like a lot of beloved liberal content creators and maybe even leftist content creators that like they've seen online are also taking on this story and directly attacking. Taylor Lorenz and not necessarily taking issue with her reporting, but simply saying that she's just bad and shitty, and the point here is not like drama or parasocial relationships. The point here, especially if you're just a consumer of this kind of content, you should just address the issue head on. You should just tackle the issue head on. Is this article filled to the brim with fake bullshit or not? And I have yet to see anyone directly contradict the evidence that was presented in the article, in the reporting. That's it. That's it. I have no reason to believe that Wired Magazine and its editorial team actually allowed this to be reported on without literally looking through the contracts or at least corroborating the evidence presented by numerous on background, on the record, and off the record sources. That is how you normally write articles, okay? This is not a Substack post. It's not a Medium post. This is not, a call-out post on TikTok. This is an entirely different thing. And I think a lot of people have forgotten or don't know how mainstream outlets work. They don't think about like the numerous different the points and multiple different groups that like look through all of the information presented in the article to ensure that it's like to the best of their ability accurate. Okay. Has anyone involved in the story denied Taylor Lorenz reporting on the group chat and their discussions about the contract? This appears to be what they're going with. Nothing but deflection and smearing Taylor as a biased reporter. Nothing about the reporting itself. What about the New York Times? It's the same. For the New York Times, it's also the same. I always say this. I say this all the time. Okay? There are obvious institutional biases when it comes to mainstream outlets. Okay? There are. But even, what do I always tell you? Even when the New York Times writes an article, they don't directly lie. Okay? They don't. They don't just like make shit up. They'll just go to a resource that lies with regular frequency, Israel, okay? And they will just say, this is what Israel said about the attack. That's not a lie. That is literally true. Israel did say that about the baby annihilation that took place. That's the problem. New York Times is not going to lie. They're going to bury the lead. They're going to use passive tone when they're talking about like Palestinians being slaughtered, and they're going to actively spike a story if it looks really bad for Israel, and they're going to do everything in their possible power to make it seem like Israel is actually simply forced to do something violent, but they're not going to just make shit up. They're not going to just lie. They're not going to make up a resource. They will go to a source that is not credible at all, the Israeli envoys, the Israeli government, and they will say it as though it's they will report it as though it's like a reasonable narrator of events, when they have shown time and time again that they're not a reasonable narrator of events. But that's still Like a lie by omission is still a lie, but it's not a lie in the same way that like these contracts are real, okay? And if the New York Times was reporting on this story, they would also go through the process of like looking at the contracts. Do you see what I mean? If the New York Times was reporting on this and it's like Brian Tyler Cohen, wasn't Brian Tyler Cohen, but it was Israel, for example, they would just take what Brian Tyler Cohen is saying and put it in the article. That wouldn't be a lie. He did say that, right? They would request a quote from him and then they would put that quote in the article. Even when someone is lying by omission or laundering the or just whitewashing the reputation of a person, they're still in a mainstream resource, in a mainstream report. They're not going to just like make shit up. Okay? And ironically enough, I try to explain that to you guys all the time, and sometimes I feel like I maybe have failed in describing this process to you. Huh? Niçin? İki. Well said. And the way the New York Times lies and also informs how they occasionally put out excellent work. Yes. Yes, they don't make shit up, but they quote people who make shit up, and then their readers take that as truth. There's hardly a difference. I know, which is why I always explain that to you. But there's a difference between completely making shit up and going to a person you know makes shit up. Ultimately, there is still an editorial standard that they're abiding by. As a matter of fact, the New York Times' reporting on Screams Without Words was the October 7 like mass rape directed by Hamas news report did not meet the editorial standard of the newspaper. That's why it was a massive issue, because internally New York Times reporters and even the editorial staff was actively yelling about putting out this piece of report that was filled to the brim with false information. That's why it was a huge deal. It was a bigger deal than all of the other reports that they've conducted, where they just like go to Israel and Israel says, no, the baby's crib was Hamas and there was a, Hitlerian artifact inside of the baby's crib. And then they just like slam that into the middle of an article where they're talking about how Israel lasered like 50 children. Okay. Like that's the difference. The difference is like, you can't just like go and make shit up.
It's for years I've been saying the left needs to organize independent media in the way that the right has been doing. The left needs to fund independent creators the way that the right does. The right has won even arguably presidential elections because they're...
Have you covered how some libbed up defenders are being ghouls and saying how Taylor Lorenz posted this article as a means to get you to pick her? I don't really understand that, because like the people that are outed in this process are people that I have no issue with. Brian Tyler Cohen, like I have disagreements with them. I think it's up that they didn't talk about, or David Pakman. I have no issues with him, even though he is noticeably absent from the conversation when it comes to Israel. And I think that's like up. It's a major problem. But ultimately, like I've never had a back and forth with David Pakman or have fought them at all. I think that like we just have a cordial professional relationship in general. Okay. They stay in their own lane. They do this thing. I stay in mine. I do my thing. Okay. So this isn't like, this isn't like some, this isn't people that I have like active smoke with. Okay. As a matter of fact, she could have easily reported on the Progressive Victory Fund and its connections to Destiny, for example, or its connections to Brianna Wu, people I do have smoke with. And that would have probably been a better argument in that situation for people to be like, well, Taylor Lorenz did this for Hasan because she's going after Hasan's enemies or some shit, even though it still would be good reporting in that regard and would stand on its own. So that makes no sense. And I think what's really funny about this stuff is that they're not even what's really funny about this stuff is that they're not even shitting on Wired Magazine, which is what they should be shitting on. If they think that this is like fake bullshit, they should be shitting on Wired Magazine, right? Why are they not doing that? Because they know that if they attacked Wired Magazine, they would look like Donald Trump. But if they at least like attack Taylor, who has a ton of enemies online, And then, you know, then they don't have to say Wired magazine is releasing fake news. That's it. They don't even bring up that this is not like a random call out post, but instead like a fully fleshed out news piece on Wired magazine. Okay? I don't believe that Wired magazine, and I might be wrong, but I don't believe that Wired magazine would like literally report on fake bullshit without looking into it. David Pacman claimed that the report is completely debunked. After a recent Wired hit piece, now fully debunked, false claims started circulating, and sadly, some of the people chose to unsubscribe from my website membership Substack or unfollowed on YouTube. The outcome is exactly what the author was hoping for, that they put out a misleading and inaccurate article. If you want to support what I do, please consider subscribing. Are the influencers involved ever critical of the Democratic Party? I'm not entirely certain on that, but dude, that's crazy, man. Like, they're just now moving on to say that it's just been completely debunked. And I didn't see any of the debunking at all. What is this? I never took a vow.
They were just, no, actually, George Soros bought my car directly with his credit card.
What is this?
So nice of him. And
it's Suzanne Lambert. Who is this person? What is this? I have to pee.
Abundantly clear right on the outset. This is not me apologizing. This is not me convincing. This is not me trying to persuade. These are the objective, irrefutable facts. And if you choose not to believe an entire group of widely respected, smart, credible people over a perpetually disgraced ex-journalist turned beggar for Substack subscriptions, then I think you are, and I need you to listen to this very carefully, profoundly stupid. And I don't want you following me anyway. Just so we're super clear. So first on Taylor Lorenz, I have never met a more widely hated, universally contemptible person beyond Taylor Lorenz, except for Ted Cruz. I have never met another journalist who respects her. I have never met an interview subject who was not misquoted by her. And this is all widely documented. Taylor Lorenz cannot stand content creators, and she doesn't like content creators because she does not stand to benefit from that landscape, despite being a content creator herself. And frankly, I don't blame her. Honestly, if I had spent my entire career trying to be good and relevant and taken seriously at something, only for people to come in who I deem less qualified, do way better, and have way better engagement than me, I would also likely be pissed. And maybe that's why she's super weird towards me. She made a video about me in February that a few people messaged me about. I guess essentially saying that I was begging for media attention, which you wish, babe. My inbox stays full. I'm sorry yours doesn't, but that's not my problem. But then when I was like, wait, what video? She had deleted it, which to me is just not behavior characteristic of a serious journalist. She talked about me to people at a White House Correspondents' Dinner event, but then it never came up to me or introduced herself. So she talks a huge game online and not in person, as with most of these people. And there is so much more here. You can Google it. I think that would benefit a lot of you actually, but that is your source for this article, just so we're starting on the same page. On to the article itself. I have never been paid to make content by Chorus. That has never happened, nor have I broken any guidelines as far as disclosures. Chorus is an incubator program, so think of Chorus as like...
Noticing none of these people that can actually refute what's in the article, they should tell you all you need to know about people shitting on Taylor's journalism amount. Yeah, it's always like personal relationships and like anger. It's disappointing. It's disappointing to see. You were saying 5 seconds ago that they didn't want to attack the outlets so as to not look like Trump, only to open a tweet in sequence with one of them saying that the report was totally debunked like Trump does when something bad comes about him. Yes, but even in that process, these guys are liberals, okay? They can't be out here saying like Wired News is doing fake news. How dare they do fake news? So they have to say like, oh, the reporter actually sucks. And here's why. Instead of actually tackling the veracity of the information that was presented in the article. If you actually have an issue with the article, under normal circumstances, you would demand a retraction. You would come in with the correct information and you would demand a retraction. If they refuse to do so, you sue them, okay? That's how it's supposed to go. And Wired Magazine and media outlets are not in the game, technically, theoretically, to smear people, okay? They're in the game to accurately report on the news, regardless of whatever political biases they may hold. So in that situation, because they have the utmost importance is to ensure that the information is correct, if there is wrong information, and this happens sometimes, okay? They get a bad source, or they don't do their proper due diligence, and they get wrong information, they put out wrong information, they issue a retraction. Okay, they issue corrections, they issue retractions, or sometimes they might even take the entire article down. So the fact that they're not doing that, but instead directly attacking the journalists on some completely irrelevant bullshit is, I think, a way for them to maintain this posture where they are saying, well, some of the stuff they're reported on is correct, but we're just going to paper over that and then directly tackle the messenger and not the actual message. Not just the journalist, but her whole audience. I mean, it's the journalists. They're mostly going after Taylor and saying that she is a biased online troll. And it sucks because, like, no matter what people do, you just there's unfortunately not too much media literacy. There's not a lot of understanding of how news is reported on. And Taylor certainly doesn't have many allies in general as well. So, like, there isn't even that, like, same network of content creators that she could, like, rely on that would just be like, that would actively go out and defend her. So that's it. That's the reason why this is like, they're doing overwhelming pushes on just like going after her directly. It's not her first rodeo. So I think ultimately she'll be fine, because as long as she does good work, like, obviously credible outlets will rely on her for doing decent reporting.
Leftist that is known for being very critical of the Democratic Party, and I'm a member of a training program called Chorus that teaches political content creators on the left how to grow their platforms and make content creation into a full-time job. I have a slew of receipts to explain why a very fear-mongering article that came out yesterday about how this program works is just very, like, inaccurate. And I think I'm a good person to talk about this because I've seen a lot of people afraid that this program is just a way for Democrats to pay people off to blindly defend Democrats on the internet. And I understand the fear because that would be diabolical if it was true. But this is a video of me, like, yelling at the DNC literally yesterday over their refusal to endorse an arms embargo against Israel. I am not one to hold back on criticizing the Democratic establishment, so I think I'm useful proof that that's not what this program's about. I do feel there's people in this cohort who shill a little bit too hard for the Democrats, but that's a them problem, not a this program problem. Without further ado, let's get into the claims of the article versus my receipts. Okay, so the first, like, main big scary thing that's written into this article is creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and essentially cut off financially if they even so much as acknowledged that they were part.
Wait. Oh, she says she criticized the Democrats yesterday. I mean, I don't know if she's criticized the Democrats before then. I don't know who this person is. I don't know what her background is. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Listen. Never heard the word cohort used so much. Yeah. I know people who vouch for this person, but she obviously isn't indicative of the core base of Chorus creators. Life is so crazy. There's a lore master online for everybody. Anyway, let's see what she says.
The programmer that Chorus existed.
Stop punching left, please. Wait, I'm punching left. Is literally me. Hi.
Here's a video of someone named Heidi who's in the cohort explaining what Chorus is and that she's joining it on November 20th, 2024. Here is the Chorus website that is public facing. Anyone can see it with literal pictures.
This is what I meant. Like there's like some content creators that are like affiliated that are on the website.
The creators that are in the cohort. In the contract I signed, there is some language that says, hey, please, like, before you make a public statement about what Chorus is, just check with us. The reason for that is that, as the article states, there's over 90 influencers in the program, many of whom have very small accounts and joined the program to get, like, mentorship and happen to be immigrants or trans in a red state, right? And, like, already happen to be kind of in extra danger right now. And so the goal with the, like, please check with us clause was to make sure that small creators who already had targets on their back weren't accidentally, like, featured on a huge page and then suddenly have an onslaught of threats from the right. Chorus has never been kept some nefarious secret, right? People have been talking about it. It was more just, hey, this is already an unsafe job for some people. Check with us in advance so you don't accidentally, like, add to someone's unsafety. Okay, number 2. According to copies of the contract viewed by Wired, creators in the program must funnel all bookings with lawmakers and political leaders through Chorus. No, again, I literally have the
I don't know these smaller creators, but I do know the large ones that have constantly attacked everyone directly for not supporting Joe Biden or Kamala Harris due to the genocide. Really horrible people this program supports is what I have issues with. I mean, that's the problem, right? The problem is if you are setting up a pro-democratic party, if you're setting up a pro-democratic party like influencer network, and the influencer you're working with are either somewhat silent on Israel or were silent on Israel when the Democrats were doing it, but are only now speaking out against it. But even then, it's not like super aggressive. as the tides are shifting, and spend a good deal of time like shitting on the left flank for demanding that, like, correctly demanding that Kamala Harris take a stance on this issue and separate herself from the Biden administration in order to win the election, or in order to just like not come across like an immoral, bloodthirsty monster, you know, any number of different good and valid reasons for why people might criticize their representatives that they are going to inevitably vote for or choose not to vote for, right? All of that stuff combined makes it seem like these groups are not there to build a robust network to combat the right and its misinformation, but also to whip the ranks to ensure that there is a steady flow of new people that are getting their information from TikTok and social media that are loyal fans of the Democrats, no matter how much Democrats fail the broader base, fail America, and don't actively fight back against the Republicans or even push for the appropriate policy solutions, even when it means losing the election. That's my issue. I think what LGBT propaganda is, yes. What the
contract right here. I'll talk through it in a minute, but first let me show you this. Here's an email of me directly reaching out to the Zoran campaign to try to interview him, because Chorus does not control who I interview or what I post. I also sometimes text the comms directors directly of like Congress people that I want to interview, because usually the congressional offices will give out these little business cards. And this is not like specific to content creators. This is just like if you go to try to talk to your senator, their people will give you little business cards. I blurred out the name of the specific person because I feel awkward, but like anybody can get these business cards and then you can just text them. Chorus does not control that. I've done lots of congressional interviews and usually I just set them up myself. And here's the section of the contract, right, that confirms that. It says they want you to disclose to Chorus any engagement with government officials related to Chorus's policy agenda that contractor, that's me, I'm the contractor, arranges through other means, right? So if I just arrange it myself with a congressperson, I just let Chorus know so that they know that congressperson's open to booking and other people in Chorus can do it too. Accidentally,
So I don't get it. Isn't this literally just like her admitting that there is a contractual stipulation and you just kind of like either you cooperated with Chorus and you abided by the contract? I mean, that's like, this is not debunking the article. This is confirming the article. I'm confused by this. Is there something I'm not understanding? I think she's in chat. No, she's not. That other chatter was lying. She's obscuring clause 3, but it seems to be saying she has to collab fully with Chorus for such separate engagements from number 2. Yeah. Utilize the Chorus newsroom to book engagements, disclose the Chorus newsroom personnel, any engagements with government officials or others on topics related to Chorus's policy agenda that the contractor arranges through other means. This literally is a confirmation of the contract. Now we don't even need to see, at least for this issue, a piece of the contract because she revealed it. One of the rigid standards in the contract, one of the rigid provisions in the contract was that you have to collaborate fully with Chorus regarding all such separate...
I always forget to let Chorus know. Like, I don't think I've ever told them that before, but that's not what's important. What's important is that...
Where is it? There's like, there's got to be a screenshot that shows it, right? Yeah. Yeah, this is disclose the Chorus newsroom personnel, any engagements with government officials or other on topics related to Chorus's policy agenda, the contractor arranges through other means. But then number 3, it doesn't... I want to see number 3 because it says she's saying that it's stipulated, but in the practice, it was very open and more of a check-in process. Not sure if that's true. Just what I think she's saying here. No, I understand that, but that doesn't actually, that literally doesn't address, that actually only confirms that the article had access to the contract. The journalist had access to the contract. It's visible in the other tab. Does anyone have a better visibility for number 3? Collaborate fully with Chorus regarding all such separately arranged engagements. Contractors participate. Have they denied access to the contract? Wired is explicit about reading them. No, that's the point. The point is they're not actually saying that the contract is collaborate fully with Chorus regarding all such separately arranged engagements. Contractor further agrees to participate. God damn it. None of it shows it because her head's in the way. These similar statements creators are now putting out about our story after a recent Wired hit piece. Because of the recent Wired hit piece that has not been debunked, misinformation spread like wildfire, and several people decided to unsubscribe from my Substack. Wait, what the? Why are they all saying the same thing? Whether it's like cohorts, are they? That outcome is exactly what the author was hoping for. Because of a recent Wired hit piece that has not been debunked, misinformation spread like wildfire, and several people decided to unsubscribe from my Substack. That's what the author wanted, despite publishing a false article. Please consider subscribing to support my work today. After a recent Wired hit piece not fully debunked, false claims started circulating, and sadly, some of the people chose to unsubscribe from my website membership, Substack, or unfollowed on YouTube. That outcome is exactly what the author was hoping for when they put out a misleading and inaccurate article. If you want to support what I do, please consider subscribing. For your information, I absolutely have seen coordinated smear attacks from other journals against journals they don't like in group chats. If you're a real journo, you should be questioning / thinking critically instead of piling on. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, yeah, like journalists have the same networking problems and like petty disagreements and shit too, for sure. Was it actually debunked? No, they're just saying it was debunked. They didn't actually debunk it, and it seems like one of the people that released a piece of the contract in an effort to debunk the contract, unironically, actually confirms that this was one of the standards. It confirms one of the standards that Chorus actually applied to their content creators in the own contract. Like, she's literally saying it right here. She's showing it. Yeah, she bunked it instead of debunking it.
You're literally acknowledging here that you can book it yourself. And the fact that the person who wrote this article claims to have read through the entire contract, but like, here it is clearly written.
Yeah, collaborate fully with Chorus regarding all separately arranged engagements. Contractor further agrees to participate in newsroom for the booking opportunities. Was categorically false. Like, that is quite concerning about your journalistic integrity. Like, I get that these contracts are long and confusing. That's why people have lawyers and managers to help them, but you don't write an article about it unless you understand what's going on. This whole article is just written like, you know, this group, they have money and so they control them. And it's just like, no, that's not what's happening. If there is someone in this cohort that you are like, they are too much of a shill doing whatever the Democratic Party says, it's not this program that's the reason for that. I don't know how to put this nicely. It's either a personal moral failing by those people, or it's a different contract they're under that says they can't criticize Dems, but it's not this one because I'm under this contract and you can catch me on the daily making fun of Andrew Cuomo. Her core claim here seems to be that they don't have discretionary power over bookings. I mean, yeah, they don't have to abide by it if they don't choose to, but that doesn't mean, like, it's up to the discretion of the company to void your contract if you are operating outside of the contractual boundaries. Yes, it's up to Chorus, but the very fact that that is a contractual stipulation is confirmed. And it's not only confirmed by the contract itself, but it's also corroborated by numerous influencers that thought that the contract itself was far too rigid. So, like, you might have had a different experience with Chorus in terms of like who you collaborate with and like getting proper clearance or whatever, or even in certain instances never getting proper clearance from Chorus and they just like never chose to void it. But that doesn't change the reality that it's like literally written into the contract that she's showing. So I guess like either I'm misunderstanding something
thing that we ever post.
Either I'm misunderstanding something. Bobby Lasers, thank you for the 80 gifted subs. Either I'm misunderstanding something that she's saying here. Is she going to show something else? She just a very naive presentation of the contract saying they wouldn't enforce it. Yeah, you can't, like, that doesn't debunk it. That's not what the contract says. It says that you have to let them know, not that they need approval. I'm pretty sure she's saying you must disclose, but not that there's discretionary power. But when I read contracts, I would interpret that as most power being granted to Chorus. Exactly. Ultimately, if you don't report to Chorus, they can just cut you, which is exactly what the article is saying. And that's legalese for saying you have to report it. It's mandatory. The fact that they don't actually follow through on this and like and void people's contracts over it doesn't change that dynamic at all. Yeah, it's not that you must disclose, but 3 clearly says you have to fully collaborate with them, which legally is gray, but gives them a lot of power. Yes, that vagueness is built into that vagueness is built into the contracts on purpose so that you're still at the company's discretion. You're still at the organization's discretion. They can like let you go, and they have financial power over you in that regard. That's it. So it just doesn't make sense to claim that this is like a big misunderstanding or something.
Because she is not supposed to publish an article unless it's been like very fact checked and contextualized, and this was like,
this is true. She's not supposed to, and neither is Wired. Wired is not supposed to release an article unless it's like been fact checked. So I suspect that did take place. I have no reason to believe that Wired has dropped its like editorial standards specifically for an article that tackles like one one Democratic big donor funded group that's like using Chorus as a middleman to fund Dem operatives, to make Dem operatives out of like otherwise independent liberal content creators.
Like very misleading. And then I also highlighted this section. I accidentally talked about it already earlier in the video. The, creators will not publicize the relationship with Chorus or tell others they're a member of the program without Chorus's prior express consent. This is the protecting small creators part, but also lots of things in contracts are written very strict in case of legal emergency. I've told plenty of people casually that I'm in Chorus, and Chorus does not care. They've expressly told us that that's fine. This is just for if someone does something like diabolically evil and then Chorus has to sue them, and they can just be like, girl, the contract. Like, it makes it easier in court. They don't really care about it otherwise. It's not top secret. If you want more.
Okay, so she then also, so she also confirmed the other piece of this as well. I love how they're trying to posit this as Taylor going rogue and reporting this and publishing it on her own without editors and lawyers doing due diligence. I know. That's what I mean. It's like, it's so silly. But also, so she admitted that part as well. Okay, so the point is, the debunking that is taking place here is just an admission of the veracity of the things reported. It's just that it's not that big of a deal because people don't actually follow through on it, or Chorus has never followed through on it. She's also not disproving because the contract clause applies to Democratic candidates. She'd be commenting on Zoran as a Democratic candidate. Cuomo is not. Yeah, I mean, that too, but still. She's literally confirming the article, but claiming it's not that bad because of what they were told by Chorus themselves, I guess. Yeah. Especially in light of the way, I don't know. I don't like this. Like, the more I see people,
examples of people who,
the more I see people like attack the Wired reporting on this, because that's what they're doing without actually saying that they're doing that. They're actually attacking Wired, but they don't want to say that they're attacking Wired magazine, so they're like attacking Taylor Lorenz. But the less I like the lack of transparency coming from these guys who I have until this moment no reason to believe would be like behaving this way. It's kind of, it's disappointing. Logs, please. All right, let's see. The thing about this is that these are influencers, content creators getting paid. They identify themselves as such. They were likely paid to avoid talking about certain political subjects and may identify as liberals, but are not political commentators. This is one of the many cases of people like Joe Rogan, but small TikTokers doing politics while being uninformed about liberalism and leftism and the political landscape themselves. I don't trust influencers. Yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of like this, right? Here, let's flip the script. It comes out that Joe Rogan is actually getting paid by a shadowy right-wing think tank. Okay, like a right-wing funding operation where, right-wing billionaires are giving a fuck ton of money. Okay, right-wing billionaires are giving a fuck. This, by the way, very likely could be the case. Okay, I suspect it probably is the case, right? Let's say the Wilkes brothers, who are famous for funding PragerU, Daily Wire, and numerous other Republican organizations, like Republican media outlets that are supposed to be independent, right, is also funding Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan doesn't bill himself as like a right-winger. He actually actively says he's not a right-winger, which is really funny because, I mean, he endorsed Donald Trump and even endorsed Ron DeSantis back in the day. So what more do you need to know? But let's say a bunch of right-wing mega donors, okay, gave this exact same contract to Joe Rogan. Let's say that took place. And then this contract was outed. Do these liberals behave the same exact way? That's the question. Do they behave the same exact way? I don't think they do. I think they celebrate this reporting. They say it's investigative journalism at its finest, and they use every opportunity to shit on Joe Rogan by presenting that article over and over again. Right? Same exact structure. There is let's say there's a middleman that is Turning Point USA or something, right? And Turning Point USA is giving a contract to Joe Rogan to that dictates like who he has as guests and all this stuff, but they don't enforce it. But they have it in the contractual, they have it in written, okay, in their obligations, in their contractual obligations, where like you have to check in with us, who your next guests are going to be. We have some level of like editorial control. We don't enforce it, but that doesn't matter, right? It still exists in the contract. And that was outed. If that was outed, people would celebrate this piece of reporting. But a lot of liberals are not looking at it in that same way. A lot of liberals right now are going, oh, this is an independent news network that's just like simply for no reason, with no stipulations whatsoever, just choosing to fund liberal influencers, some of which are political commentators, some of which are not political commentators, but they're just like funding liberal influencers, and there's no contractual stipulations, even though there are, right? But they don't actually abide by it. It's up to their own discretion, and they don't actually follow through on these contractual obligations ever. And that's really up that you're covering this and talking about the lack of transparency in this process. Now, I'm no big city lawyer, but if the counter here coming from all of the content creators that were a part of this program is that they were just giving us money for no reason and no questions asked, and because they like our vibes, and the contractual obligations were actually not real, or even if they were real, as admitted by this person, they actually never held us to that standard. So this article should have never been written. Well, what's the reason why they're giving you the money? Or what's the reason why they gave you a contract then? They could have just given you the money, no questions asked, without a contract, right? It just doesn't make sense. The counters doesn't make sense. The counter narrative coming from a lot of people simply make no sense to me. I want to believe them, and I'm being as charitable as possible, but it genuinely does not make sense. Will you ever be transparent about the fact that your broadcast is funded by us, the viewers? Always. The Piker Broadcasting Service is funded by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. And if PBS ever takes ads, there is no editorial control. And those ads abide by the FTC standards with the hashtag ad. What is this? You are load the both sides, everything. So I'm giving you a taste of your own medicine. Let's talk about Clarence Thomas and his wife Ginny. Wait, what? What's with all that send the vote PAC money to Rogan before the Trump interview? Wait, what? Chatter. Why do you think I'm against that? Why do you think I'm at odds with you? Yeah, that's up. I just said there's a very high likelihood that Joe Rogan also did get dark money funding. It's so confusing. I'm saying that's bad. I'm saying that's bad across the board. Do you think I'm a Republican? What the No, I love you. Okay, thank you, Professor Twitchy. She said Chorus could end the contract if someone has nefarious intent, which means they're leftists and not pushing the Dem Party propaganda. I mean, we don't know. We don't know if that's the case. What we do know is that this is written in the contract. What they use this for, well, that remains to be seen. You played a part in creating the permission structure for leftist content and are missing out on the dark money bag, huge L. I'm good. Even when it's a group, even if it's a political advocacy group that I agree with entirely, that have wanted to give me money for marketing to promote them, I've said no very openly in the past. And the reason for why is because I think it's better for them to use those funds elsewhere, right?
Publicly talked about Chorus for a while. I'm happy to provide them. Feel free to comment. I just used Heidi's example because I think it's just very obvious. Okay, I have two more things to address in this video, and then feel free to comment if you have more things you want me to explain. But the first is, we've talked a lot about what Chorus is not, because that article led people to believe that it was this, a plot by the DNC to be able to just pay people off.
Hamni Kadoza, thank you for the 20 gifted subs.
Off to blindly obey them. Now that that's been debunked, let's talk about what Chorus actually is. I have my Google Calendar for the week here to explain. Every morning, we start off with a news update meeting. Okay, we meet for 15 minutes. I wake up and I'm immediately just told what the news of the day is. And we all get a chance to ask questions if we want to know how a specific lawsuit is developing or what is Trump expected to do next with the National Guard, right? We're just making sure we're all the most informed. These are very brief. Sometimes they're 5 minutes. Then 3 times a week in the...
Bro, this literally, I'm telling you right now, role reversal. If the American Enterprise Institute or the Heritage Foundation was doing this, which by the way, I have no reason to believe they're not doing this. They probably are doing this. And someone cracked that case, we'd be popping champagne, talking about how we did it, we found out. Like, that's crazy. That's like, they're giving you talking points, girl. What the hell? That's like, I mean, I understand why this. Here, I'll give you an example from Congress. Everybody hates lobbying, right? This is the exact same argument that congressional, like, long-term congresspersons make about lobbyists and why they're important. I can't read every piece of legislation. I'm not the most knowledgeable on every piece of legislation. So obviously lobbyists are good for that reason, because they make things easy to understand. They give me the talking points. They tell me all the good parts about this piece of legislation that they helped write. This is literally the argument. If you ever listen to congressional representatives that are constantly defending this unjustifiable structure that has caused America to turn into a direct oligarchy, they say that. They're like, well, they're giving me the talking points. I can't go and look for the talking points myself, but it's your job. If you are an independent content creator, like, it should be your job to like learn the day's news. That's what I do. This doesn't make any sense. What she's doing to talk about how like not nefarious this group is, unironically, from my perspective, looks a lot worse. The only reason why a lot of people don't see it as like being bad is because they're like, well, the Republicans do it too. And this time it's being done in a good way for a liberal media infrastructure. Like, that's it. That's what
afternoon, we have a more like specific training. On Mondays, we have technical trainings. That's where we learn about a specific platform. So like someone will come and explain how you start a Substack or how you start YouTube long form. On Wednesdays, we have advocacy training, which is where we hear from an expert in a specific policy field. So recently it's been a lot of people who work in like immigration explaining ICE or explaining the logistics of the National Guard, that kind of thing. And then Fridays are a little bit more flexible and they're optional. I haven't gone to them, so I like won't speak on it. And that is the weekly schedule. And the whole point of it is that you're like developing your channel over the course of 6 months so that hopefully by the end of it, you can be your own self-sufficient full-time content creator. Because people who work in politics on social media often have a hard time getting funding. Like, it's hard to make it your job, but the right does a really good job of making it people's jobs, such that the political right actually pushes out 500 times as much content as the political left. That's an actual statistic every single day. They're outperforming us in volume incredibly because they just make sure that people can do it as a job. That's what this program is trying to accomplish, to counter like the manosphere. Last thing I want to talk about is my belief that
I don't think Fresh and Fit is getting their notes from the Heritage Foundation. They're just organically heads, okay? And they're churning out that kind of propaganda. This is more in line with like, and maybe even more hands-on than what you would see at like a Daily Wire, right? Because like the Daily Wire is obviously getting funded by the same people that fund the Republican Party, the same shadowy donors that are funding the Daily Wire, and they are getting their talking points from the American Enterprise Institute and the Heritage Foundation. That much is very clear. Obviously, there is like this horizontal collaborative effort and a vertical integration when it comes to independent all the way to mainstream outlets within the Republican ecosystem. No such ecosystem exists for the liberals. They're trying to design one. The problem is it's not being disclosed. And also on top of that, it's like, it seems like the standards are fairly rigid. I'm willing to bet, and this is pure speculation, but the lawyers that put these contracts probably just copy pasted a similar structure that like the Republican think tanks have and Republican dark money or Republican PACs have. I'm willing to bet that it's a verbatim identical contract that Chorus is using, that Republicans are using. I don't have any evidence for this. I'm not a journalist, obviously. I'm not an investigative reporter, but I could totally see this being a Control-C, Control-V situation from the way that like the Republican operatives and the standards that they abide by. Yeah. The left will never win a contest for who has more billionaires, and justice for working people will never come from a movement driven by the politics of billionaires. Yeah, exactly. That's it. Like, even Pierre Omidyar is not an exception to this rule, for the record, despite the fact that he is a billionaire that has funded like investigative reporting, very good investigative reporting in this country. But there's obviously still plenty of areas of his own personal interests where he will dictate the terms of investigative reporting happening. Okay? That's just the case. This is why I always say you can't grift to the actual left, okay? This is why I always say you can't grift to the actual left. There is no like PAC money that you can get. You sound ridiculous. I'm sorry. What? Why? The Allied powers shouldn't have gone to war with the Nazis because they would be funded by billionaires. Wait, what? Yeah, this is another purity test that y'all force folks who are not fully ultra crazy left enough. Is part of the problem, in my opinion. The right will always win. Yet when this is all y'all's response to the Dems, good enough isn't perfect, so y'all reject it entirely. So why say it? Okay. Chatter. This is not about being ultra crazy pro, Maoist revolutionary. This is just, I'll use a simple example for you, okay? I'll use a simple example for you. Something that I've said a million times over. Why do the Democrats keep losing? Because they are beholden to their corporate benefactors. And that causes them not to directly address many of the issues that all Americans are facing, where they could actually, if they were earnestly communicating, they could actually win tremendous victories over, right? Do you not want a Democratic Party that stands for a lot of Bernie Sanders' policies, for example? What's up? What do you... Oh, okay. Medicare for all, free college for all, like universal programs, protecting Social Security, expanding the welfare state, public housing. There's a reason why the Democrats don't do this. And the best example I can give you is Kamala Harris's campaign, how it started, and then how it finished. Kamala Harris's campaign started. There was a lot of momentum. A lot of people were excited about it. They were like, oh my God, finally, it's not the old man, the decrepit old man. Maybe this is a change of pace. This is a change of attitude. Kamala Harris actually came out and said, we're going to fix grocery prices, right? She literally said she's going to do a price capping scheme. Okay, Republicans attacked it relentlessly, said this is communism, this is Venezuela. It only became more popular in the process. But at some point, Kamala Harris talked to her brother-in-law. Kamala Harris's brother-in-law is on the corporate board of Uber. And Kamala Harris's brother-in-law literally turned around and said, cut it with this anti-billionaire populist shit. It's not going to work. You have to be pro-billionaire. You have to be pro-corporation. And Kamala Harris's campaign changed its attitude after that conversation took place. They brought on what's his name? The former Dallas Cowboys guy, Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban started becoming a spokesperson for the campaign, went everywhere talking about how Kamala is actually better for billionaires, blah, blah, blah, all this shit. And the reality of the matter is that was part of the reason why they were just bad at communicating to the rest of Americans that were looking for some kind of real radical change that would help them, right? That became a failure for the Democrats. They lost. They lost the election for a million different reasons. This is one of them, right? But the problem there is the same problem that persists here, which is that billionaires and millionaires and all these like advocacy groups are not funding these people so that they can undermine the position that they have in society. No billionaire is going to give money to a person who is saying billionaires should not exist. Okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people do not understand that like Democrats have to stand 10 toes down and present the super wealthy as enemies of the working class. This is not radical politics. This is what a lot of social democratic parties do, even if it's aesthetically something that they do. That's it. Do you see what I mean? And this is the issue. I don't even have a problem with like funding left media or liberal media or things of that nature. I still think that this process should be transparent. Simply presenting the opposing side as having a non-transparent vehicle to deliver this kind of messages to as broad of an audience as possible doesn't change that reality. I'm not defending Dems, but if you think that not funding folks on social media to counter the right, you're being really unrealistic. No, that's not the point. Okay? This is the same argument that Democrats make. We have to get backed by billionaires and corporations to win elections. That's what they say. Do you understand? Do you not realize that this is just an extension of that, but just on the TikTok side of things? That's what it is. We have to demonstrate our servitude to the wealthy, to the interests of the wealthy, or else they won't fund us. And if they don't fund us, we won't win elections. That's the argument. The solution here is to demand to take money out of politics, not to demand that some of that money come my way. You want all messaging to be one way and that's not going to work? Okay. Ultimately, this reads to me like people are demanding that the Democrats become more like Republicans. And there are certain ways in which the Democrats should become more like Republicans. They should fight hard. They should sometimes cast aside the way that they are utterly servile to preserving institutions, for example. They just like are institution defenders. It's not a good way to go about it. Republicans will break the institutions apart. Use the institutions to your advantage when you're not in power, and then break them if they become a hurdle in putting forth a radical agenda that will improve the lives of the working class. Having said that, this goes beyond that. When I say fight like the Republicans, I don't mean like literally get funded by corporate benefactors that have rigorous standards on what you can and can't say that control your editorial independence this dramatically. Yeah, I mean, this is another thing. I always thought that Dem influencers hyping Biden felt like reassuring middle-aged people that Biden had young support rather than actually expand his appeal and outreach to young Dem voters. This was a failure for that reason. This is also, like, this is at the heart of everything that I stand against. This is the major problem. This is the major problem with like the way that the Democratic Party is trying to carve out a place for themselves in the independent media landscape. Okay? If you are not being transparent, if you're not actually abiding by if you're not actually trying to be as transparent as possible with what you are doing, and you're not revealing who your funders are, you're not revealing how much editorial control exists, then you inevitably are going to be defending the Democratic Party unconditionally and vociferously because you have a financial imperative to do so, and you're afraid that this will void your contract if you don't do so. And in that process, you're just creating this echo chamber where you're just spitting out the same status quo politics that doesn't win elections, that loses elections. You just became another version of a Democrat Party consultant that goes on CNN and says, we can't talk about Israel because our voters don't want us to talk about Israel, which is a lie. Do you understand? Open Presence, thank you for the 25, get the subs. Yeah, the PBS, the Piker Broadcasting Service, is sponsored by Open Presence. That's my big oiler. In any case, we've moved beyond whether or not the Wired reporting that came from Taylor Lorenz is correct or not. I feel like there is enough evidence that even the debunkers have presented that shows that the reporting is actually solid. So I don't know why I know why people are saying like this is debunked. They're saying that it's debunked because they don't want to address it, because it actually tackles one of the most important components of being a quote unquote independent content creator, an independent political commentator specifically, one that is different, one that is like not beholden to the Democrat Party, one that's simply enthusiastically supporting the Democrats because they agree with the Democrats because the Democrats are doing great things, right? Like when you are outed as being funded by Dem donors with like some fairly straightforward boundaries on what you can and can't say and what you can and can't do, then all of a sudden your audience is going to go, oh, are you just saying this, or are you just like reading a talking point that you got from a Democrat Party influencer media company that is like a middleman for big donors, shadowy donors? Here's the clause you couldn't see in the contract written out. Fully based on the screenshots. Yeah. Collaborate fully with Chorus regarding all such separately arranged engagements. Contractor further agrees to participate in newsroom events or booking opportunities in person or events at least twice per month. Like this is proof. this is a key component of the article that they're saying is not correct. And the only reason why we know about it is because this influencer wanted to debunk it as a person who is with Chorus. And the only debunking that came from her side was to simply say, oh, they don't actually like abide by this. It's just in the contract, but it doesn't mean anything. Okay, but if it's in the contract, and there are other influencers who have taken issue with this contract and tried to redline it, and they said, no, you can't redline it. That means they actually do care about this. They do care about it enough to keep it in the contract, and therefore there will come a day when they will use that. And perhaps going back to the article itself, this proves that the article is not incorrect.
Part about that, specifically from like the influencer side of it, they were offering influencers like thousands of dollars in order to post only good things about the IRA. And if you were like, hey, I'm going to be a little bit critical in my video, and they'd be like, oh, you're critical, you don't get the money. And so if you see influencers that are like, this is why I always say, if you see influencers that are unable to be critical of Biden to any degree, there is a good chance that through some maybe proxies or organizations, they're getting paid to say the things that they are getting paid.
Yeah. And Sean is not the first person that is like talked about this, right? And now we just have receipts. Like I said, if this exact same thing was happening with the Republicans would behave in the exact same way, but the liberals on the other side of the equation would be celebrating this as great journalism. Okay? That's it. And if you are a consumer of political commentary online, I do not understand why you would defend the lack of transparency in this structure or the editorial control that exists within this structure. I just don't get it. You're not getting paid to do this. You are not getting paid to do this. I do not understand why you would ever defend it. I guess it's just parasocial shit, right? Which is so crazy. This reminds me of Politicon when you brought up Charlie Kirk's backer. He went ballistic and started attacking you. Oh, yeah, Foster Freeze. Yeah. Is Dean involved? No, not to my knowledge. Correct. I'm not defending it. I'm comparing it with the Trump corruption, the plane from Qatar, the Clarence Thomas money, the Washington Post not allowed to endorse Harris, Bezos owned. Oh, yeah. But I feel like I'd be a hypocrite if I criticize all that, which I did every single time, and then didn't actually say anything about this. I would look like a partisan hack. It's also something that I don't believe. I think this is a bad thing. It's a standard that I've tried to abide by on my own as well. It's the exact same issue. But yeah, Sockdown Michael says, I know the level of purity test this stuff, but David is right. Right-wing propaganda has dominated social media because they have billionaires funding those content creators. The left needs their own billionaires funding left-wing content creators. They can keep up backing the internet. Okay, this, again, the frustrating part about this is right-wing billionaires, and this is the fundamental problem with like left voices, okay? If the Democratic Party is still abiding by mega corporations and their interests, they're not going to fund people to do messages against those very same mega corporations and their interests. Literally, look at healthcare, okay? Let's say tomorrow healthcare is on the menu and it's a major point of contention. But because Democrats are funded by the same private healthcare mega donors, they're going to literally burn you if you say anything about this. They don't want you to be policy first. They want you to just defend the Democrat Party, no matter how little the Democrats care about these issues. And you have to care about policies more than simply being ever present, simply being in front of the camera and having a broader audience. That's the problem. And I don't know why so many people don't understand it. Like, I get why content creators themselves are saying this, because they feel like they're slighted. They feel like their independence is called into question for good reason in this circumstance. Okay. But I don't understand why their audiences are not more skeptical or more curious, more intellectually honest about this process, and instead are simply repeating whatever they're hearing from their favorite content creators and just going, dude, you don't understand. You have to fight fire with fire. It's like, okay, agreed. Okay. But transparency in that process would at the very least allow you to make a better decision as a consumer. Okay. Because ultimately, all you're saying is billionaires win elections and we have to get them. We have to go back to daddy. And that's identical to what the Democrats have said in this last election cycle. They didn't want to actively go after the incredibly, immensely corrupt corporate structure that exists, that actually has played a formative role in undermining a lot of American civil liberties, their economic situation, because the financial interests of mega corporations is far more important to the Democrats, and the continued super profits is far more important to the Democrats than actually fixing some of these problems. Every single thing that you have an issue with, whether it be healthcare, whether it be housing, can literally be directed back to those who are profiting off of this unjust system. And if you are going to the same people who are profiting off of this unjust system and using the disposable income that they have on the side to fund you to do commentary, they're not going to fund you to do commentary against those people. No wealthy person is going to fund you to say the wealthy. It's that simple. Liberals think we're purity testing. We're upset about this because of the purity testing and the principle of it. I don't know about you, but I'm not most concerned about letting Republicans win. Spewing losing Democrat talking points doesn't stop that from happening. It's not the funding itself. It's that they're being discreetly paid to... Exactly. They're being discreetly paid to say loser shit. And if there was at least some semblance of transparency about who's funding and what the restrictions are, then at least you know if it's loser shit or not. You know Kalinsky's going to use this to plug his Patreon for 5 minutes? Then how come so many of these creators are pro-Palestine and pro-Zoran? I don't know how many of these creators are, but some of the top creators are not pro-Palestine. They might be pro-Zoran now, but they certainly, I would ask them if they were pro-Zoran before he actually won the D next to his name in the Democrat primary. This is functionally no different than shitting on Richie Torres for being a AIPAC attack dog. This is functionally no different than shitting on Hakeem Jeffries when he discreetly went to Silicon Valley tech CEOs and said, hey, when we come back to power, we'll suck you off in the same exact way that the Republicans are right now. Don't worry. We won't actually disrupt your ambitions. We won't actually go against you. Important point, that Content O'Brien creator does have Gaza advocacy where she criticizes Dems for their votes, but there's nothing where she points a finger at Biden or Kamala for what it's worth. The question remains, is the problem that there aren't enough Pod Save Americas or there aren't enough David Pacmans out there? Or is the problem that the Democratic Party itself is not doing enough to address the issues that Americans are facing? I don't think that a million more Democrat mouthpieces are going to actually change the real anger that people experience on a daily basis because their material conditions are eroding. Okay? I also personally think that a lot of these guys are loyal to the Democrat Party. So if the Democratic Party actively changed its messaging, they wouldn't just flip and become Republicans either. They would just become social. If the Democratic Party tomorrow magically overnight got hit with a reverse John Fetterman stroke gun and everyone became socialist, these guys would be socialists too. They would just reflect whatever the party is saying. Okay? That's why the issue that I have is not even necessarily about the process here or, you know, trying to fight fire with fire. It's the real issue here is that the Democrats clearly don't give a about changing what they've been doing. Reverse Fetterman gun is just a second car crash. You don't know that. You don't know that. He might get worse. This is disgusting. David is pretending that he's secretly being bribed by the Democrat Party is the same as funding independent left media, suggesting that if you're against this corrupt bargain, you must be against left media. If you do believe in funding independent left media, then support an organization that does not have any party or corporate backing and is genuinely committed to telling the truth regardless of the party line. Why we talk about Gaza and he never does. By the way, I don't think David Pacman has stayed silent on Gaza because he's funded by the Democrat Party. It might be a chicken or the egg situation. But I think that's his genuine perspective. He doesn't want to talk about it because, you know, he's pro-Israel. That might give him better opportunities within the Democratic Party's like independent media ecosystem. But that is, I don't think that's like because he's getting paid to be silent. Like he's like secretly, he's like, oh man, I really want to talk about the injustice in Gaza, but I just simply can't because I'm getting paid to shut the up. So anyway, Israel-Palestine is not a purity test, no matter how much liberals try to make it seem as though it's just like one issue. Who gives a why do you care so much? Okay? It's not a purity test. It's not only a fundamental flaw, both exposing the immorality of Democrats and Democrat-aligned content creators who refuse to speak on this clear wrong that's taking place, but it's also, I will always go back to what Ta-Nehisi Coates said. If you cannot expect the Democrats to stop a genocide, what makes you think they will actually preserve democracy? What makes you think that they will fight to defend democracy? A party that does not want to stop a genocide and turn a blind eye to genocide is going to turn a blind eye to fascism overtaking American institutions. That's simple. And we're seeing it happen right now. Okay? And especially right now, especially in this day and age, I don't even understand, because it's no longer an unpopular position, okay? Like on October 8th, it was an unpopular position to be pro-Palestine. Some people, knowing right from wrong, knowing the history of Israel, knowing the history of Zionism, took that position and got destroyed for it for almost a year and still continue to get smeared and attacked unjustifiably. But that's ultimately nothing. It's inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, because the issues that we spoke on at that moment were far, far, far worse, far more violent. Like I would rather take the 30% of my audience leaving and be able to say the truth to the remaining people in here, as long as I'm capable of at least moving the needle in the right direction and educate people on this matter. And that's precisely what I did for 23 months at this point, every single day, because it's ultimately nothing. It's ultimately nothing that, there's a financial disincentive or constant slander and constant smears. But at this stage, 23 months in, large majorities of the public understand it, specifically due to the courage of the Palestinians themselves, who have been shot at, who have been killed, who've watched their family members get slaughtered by our weapons that we are giving to Israel, who have been able to show their plight, who have been able to show the reality, in spite of Israel's best attempts to silence this, oftentimes through straight up murder. Okay? And now the public is completely aware of this reality. There's still room for growth. Okay? There's still more people that must come to that conclusion as well. Half of U.S. voters believe Israel's committing a genocide, Gaza polls say. They focus on things that matter to most Americans. Gaza is bottom 30 on the list of things people care about, despite the enormous moral propaganda. It's not the issue of the century some are making it out to be. The Holocaust is not that significant. Why the fuck are you talking about it? Is just a ridiculously immoral thing to say. It's a morally repugnant thing to openly communicate to people. Did you see this tweet? As a Jew, I feel very comfortable saying that I have absolutely no sympathy for Israel, free Palestine, Premiels. Wow, I've been on game. I mean, it's not surprising. There are plenty of people who have had this opinion for a very long time. It's just a matter of, yeah, he said it in 2012. It's just a matter of whether you know the truth or not. It's that simple. It's that simple. Right now, people are more worried about the fascist disaster they live in, to be fair. No, I don't even think so, man. I don't actually think so. First of all, Israel is directly connected to the fascist overtake regardless in American society. Like, Israeli groups are actively participating in the ICE kidnapping operations. So you're wrong on that front as well. Having said that, I don't even think people do care about the fascist disaster that's taking place all around us. I say this as someone who is a political commentator who speaks on these issues every day. DC is militarily occupied. Donald Trump is entertaining the notion of outing himself as a dictator, directly saying like, well, people want a dictator. He's talking about doing the same military occupation in Chicago. ICE is still doing black bagging, kidnapping operations, ripping families apart. We're still funding Israel's genocide. Children are being murdered every single day. Gaza City is going to look like Rafah by the time the final solution is finalized there. The Jeffrey Epstein stuff is like actively pushed aside. Nobody gives a shit. People are talking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. So unfortunately, we are actively sleepwalking towards direct fascism. We're already in it. We're in the waters. We're knee deep. Waters of fascism are about to reach our belly button, and we are just so oblivious to it. And I think a big part of that is unironically because there is no counterbalance to the growing fascist movement in this country, going international fascist movement, actually. There are no opposition parties that are actively putting up a fight. That's it. Anyway. This is the other side of this. I think it's part of the time. It's the part where the influencers in question were often not upfront about this, sometimes lying about it. And they all, to the person, hand waved away, were silent on, or outright lied about Biden supporting an ongoing genocide, which is not a way to build credibility. This is, we need a Fox News for the left discourse over again. It fundamentally misunderstands the dynamics at work. With rare exception, rich liberal donors who will fund media want compliant partisans, anti-left media. The GOP fuels its fringe. Liberals discipline theirs. Thank you. Adam always has such a great way of communicating the anger and resentment that I feel, okay, in a much less wordy fashion. That's it. Genuine right-wing media does not threaten the wealthy donor class. Genuine left media does. This is something I talk about all the time. This is why I say, like, there's a fundamental problem with grifting to the left. You can't grift to the left because you need grassroots backing. There's no astroturfing the left. There are no billionaires that are going to fund initiatives that say billionaires. There are no healthcare executives that are going to fund initiatives that say we want Medicare for all, which means the eradication of the profit incentive from the private healthcare structure. They're not going to do it. Whereas the Republicans, no matter how fringe, are unironically advocating for distractions, okay? Shifting the blame away from the corporate donor class back to like random Mexicans. And the more radical they are, the more they hate the Mexicans. It's not like the more radical a right-winger is, the more they want to go after the corporate structure or the corporate hierarchy. That's precisely the reason why Republicans feel comfortable leaning into their fringes. Democrats, on the other hand, unless they actually become a real workers' party, are never going to do this. That's it. That's the problem. Genuine right-wing media does not threaten the wealthy donor class. Genuine left-wing media does. Thus, partisan left media is almost always dull and inauthentic. The issue is the dynamics of begging for crumbs from wealthy donors. This is the cause of the asymmetry and will always will be. Exactly. That's it. Hasan Reaction is one of the best ones in the React channel.